Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. Jonesboro Open took place this weekend, Josh. And you know what? It's just a beautiful thing to see redemption. The redemption stories that we got to see this weekend as Calvin Heimburg and Kristin Tattar, both players who have come so close multiple times this season and come up short, often in painful ways, coming out on top this weekend. Very different paths to their titles, but certainly an amazing moment for both players to get their first wins of 2022. And Josh, you could hear in their interviews after the win just how much it meant to both of them.
I think it's really noteworthy that not all Elite Series are created equal. And it's funny because going into Jonesboro, I was feeling post-major fatigue. I wasn't ready for another Elite Series. I will still argue that there should have been a week between the Champions Cup and Jonesboro, let alone DDO that's coming up this weekend. We'll talk more about that in our Thursday show, of course. But it going into this weekend, it did not feel like an Elite Series that I felt was particularly important because of just coming off of that weekend. Major fatigue. There's no better way to put it. And it delivered. It delivered because of the redemption stories. It delivered in the drama on the MPO side. And I think that it really establishes a lot of important facts, both about those as players, as well as where our tour is on a whole. We got a lot to get to, and I'm excited to talk about all of it.
Oh man, it's a storyline heavy week. And Jonesboro is such a great course. I feel like it gets it got a little short shrift because of its spot in the schedule, and not because it's after a major, but because it's immediately after a major. I don't know. I feel like I say this every year, and we keep having it happen where we have these Elite Series events coming immediately following majors. I mean, we're about to do it again after European Open because D-Glow is like 3-4 days later
on a different continent.
Yikes, that's going to be tough, but. I have to say, I agree. I think by the time we got to Sunday, it was feeling exciting, and we obviously had just a tremendous finish in MPO. Calvin Heimburg beating Paul McBeth in a one-hole playoff. Heimburg absolutely lacing his drive on hole one after McBeth was short and left, and he got the win with a pretty easy tap-in birdie on that first hole of the playoff. But getting to that point was pretty incredible. Heimburg comes into the final round with a small lead, and he's got to go head to head with Paul McBeth and Kevin Jones, both of whom, by the way, are just playing fantastic. And all of these players, I hope you got a chance to watch the live coverage, or at this point, if you watch the Jomez, great, because you got to see some mistakes, but also just some crucial clutch shots from all of these guys. And you go back to hole 12, Kevin Jones throws in an eagle from like 150 feet, blind, and he's going crazy. He's pumped up. Then Heimburg gets a stroke back on 13 with a birdie, and neither McBeth nor Jones is able to get the birdie. Then his drive goes OB on 14. And meanwhile, Kevin Jones throws a great drive. He hits the birdie. So that's a 2-shot swing. He's in great shape. And it's looking like it at that point, it was looking like Kevin Jones might win this tournament. And they all birdie 15. And then Kevin Jones out of position off the tee shot on 16. Calvin Heimburg is in a great spot. McBeth way out of position to the point where Nate Perkins comes onto the broadcast and says he has no look. It's going to be difficult for him even to punch out from where he is. So we're thinking, okay, like Calvin is back in the mix here. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's it for Paul. Calvin clears the water, no problem. Paul, from a knee, Josh, in the woods.
Incredible.
Throws through a tiny window, blasts a forehand over the water, puts it inside circle 2, and hits a 40-foot putt for eagle. I mean, that was incredible stuff from McBeth. So Paul, Calvin get the eagles, and Kevin Jones takes the par. So 2-shot swing back the other direction. Then Paul ties it up with the other two guys on 17. He gets the birdie. He gets the lone birdie on 17. So we're going into 18 with a 3-way tie. How can you draw it up any more than this? I mean, this is just incredible. And like, this is after, McBeth takes the weird kick off the trash can and goes OB earlier, takes the bogey, and like Calvin has the big mistake where his drive goes OB, and Kevin Jones goes ice cold at the end of the round. And the wrong time for his bad streak to happen, because he goes par on 16, 17, and 18, while McBeth goes 4 down and Calvin goes 3 down. So what happens on 18? McBeth, great tee shot. Mm-hmm. Calvin pulls out the distance driver and throws maybe the best tee shot of the entire tournament on hole 18, blows it by the cameraman to about 240 feet out, over 500-foot drive on a like narrow, not quite a tunnel shot, but like it's a narrow fairway.
Yes.
It's easy to go bad on that fairway. And then McBeth, not necessarily in the greatest position, but he just throws an absolute dart and puts it within 5-10 feet parked. Calvin has a putt. And for the first time, Josh, we just saw Calvin clutch up crazy, makes the big shot on the 18th drive, hits the putt on 18, makes the big shot on hole 1, kaboom. The guy is a winner again on the Elite Series. His first outright Elite Series win since Jonesboro 2020.
We talk a lot about Jonesboro being a wide open course, and it still has the lines, and we kind of make the compromise of, and we did talk about this in the recap show a little bit about how some of the holes kind of mesh together. But I think what's really exceptional is when you're watching a close battle like that. I mean, you said it yourself. We saw both heroics and just exceptional golf, and we also saw mistakes. I think that's something that is the hallmark of an exceptional course, that it's difficult enough to force players in pressure situations into making mistakes, but still gives the opportunity to show off heroics afterwards. It makes for the most compelling golf. It makes for competitive golf. And that's really what set up for our finish at the end of this tournament. Now, Kevin Jones' throw-in was incredible. It was an amazing shot that I really think turned the tide that kept Kevin in this game and pushing him forward. I will still argue that I think Calvin's tee shot, as you said, was not only the best of the tournament, I think it may be the best tee shot we've seen this year. It was so technical. It was technical. It was bold. And what more could you have asked for on 18? How, if you gave anyone their distance driver and said, go put that wherever you think is the best possible shot to ever occur on this hole, I don't know if they would put it as close as Calvin did.
He said in the interview, we had a 3-way tie on 18. I knew someone was going to birdie, so I had to send it. So, I mean, he didn't shy away from the moment. He didn't try to play conservative. He was fully aggressive. Right? Didn't throw fairway driver, threw full distance driver, took the risk, and it paid off. And to go toe-to-toe with McBeth and beat him in a playoff, I mean, that's just a tremendous win for Calvin Heimburg. It's what he's been waiting for. Let's be honest. Yes, it's great that he's played well this season. He's up at the top. He's regularly in contention, but you have to admit it, and we talked about it on the show on Thursday, the stats are there that he has not delivered in the final round. He said it himself in the interview. And for him to come through in the final round, and get this, through 6 holes of the final round, he was at even par through those 6 holes. Not great. Not great. It was looking like he was not doing well. Then he proceeded to birdie or better 9 of the next 12 holes. And that doesn't count the playoff birdie.
Right.
So that's 10 of 13, including an eagle. Come on, right? This is what we've been waiting to see from Calvin Heimburg. And it's just got to be deeply satisfying for him. Contract year Calvin's back in full force. Back up the truck. We're saying it again. It's coming. Who's going to pay him? Innova, you better step up and pay the man.
I think it's a good start because Calvin just got the Toro, which is his new mid-range approach disc. It's a good sign. I mean, you can tell that Innova is at least making a show of investing in Calvin, and rightfully so. I really feel like Calvin is developing as a pro in his social media presence. He's got the logo. He's expanding his sponsorship repertoire. It feels like Calvin is doing all the right things in that move for contract year Calvin. The one thing that was lacking is he needs some high profile wins. He's got one. I really wouldn't be shocked if we see Calvin with another one if he continues to play at the level that he's playing.
Now, I actually want to take a look at this. If we look at the last 5 years, who do you think has the most wins on the Elite Series and Majors? In MPO?
Probably Paul.
Yep, Paul. Okay. Paul has 21
okay.
in the last 5 years. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Second place.
Probably Eagle.
That's right. Okay. He's got 12.
Yeah.
Third place.
Ricky.
That's right.
Okay.
It's Ricky at 10. And then in fourth place, it's Calvin Heimburg, who now has 6 Elite Series wins. That's way more than really anybody else. James Conrad, obviously to his credit, 2 of these are majors, but he only has 3 Elite Series wins. Kevin Jones only has 2. Drew Gibson has 2. Adam Hammes has 2. Nico has 2. This is, again, last 5 years.
Sure.
Chris has 2.
Well, give Chris his Pro Tour victories. So... those aren't Elite Series. Yeah. I would say Chris probably...
I think I agree with that. Call it 4.
Yeah, call it 4 for Chris. It feels like Chris at 2 doesn't feel like it's representative of what Chris has done for us.
Yeah.
So Chris at 4, I think is up there with that group. Makes sense. But you're right.
You know what? If you want to overweight the majors and call James Conrad and Chris Dickerson's pairs of majors more impressive than Calvin winning 6 Elite Series, totally respect that.
Sure.
At the end of the day, it still is a little bit asterisked on Calvin that he hasn't won a major yet. But I do think it's just a matter of time. Mm-hmm. We've just seen him show off all the tools. And it doesn't, we could go through all the stats. Great off the tee, great putting. The circle one putting has really come around. He hit some clutch putts late when I was thinking he might miss. Mm-hmm. Look, he is in the elite tier. This just further cements him in that spot. Don't forget that he won the match play championship, even if he downplayed its significance in the interview. Very, very, very exciting to see him get the win. And I think it, kind of changes the narrative for him going forward this season.
The only thing that I will add is that this narrative is not yet complete. And I said this in the recaps show. If Calvin goes on and doesn't win another tournament this year and chokes in clutch events and underplays and just doesn't get away with another win, then I think the narrative could very quickly become, well, Calvin just plays really well at Jonesboro. And he's comfortable there, and that's where he can step up even in pressure situations because Jonesboro is just comfortable for him, and he likes the way that it sets up for him. We talk about that with lots of players. You picked Sarah Hokum, who I don't know if had a top 5 finish all season at WR Jackson because of how well she played. If Calvin doesn't win another event this year, are you going to, would you knock him and not pick him at Jonesboro next year? I wouldn't. Repeat winner.
Horses for courses.
Horses for courses. And
we see it. So it happens.
I agree that this is the beginning of a new chapter. The question is how is this chapter going to finish? And that's going to be determined by the rest of the season, obviously.
Calvin Heimburg is now 2-0 in playoffs. He beat McBeth here, of course, and he beat Adam Hammes at the 2019 Hall of Fame Classic. Paul McBeth, 3-8 all time now. Are you surprised that he's 3-8 in 11 playoff appearances?
Honestly, yeah. You would expect the greatest of all time, the guy who is able to put himself into the playoffs, oftentimes coming from Chase, right? I'm curious. I'd have to go back and look at how many of those 11 playoffs it was other people catching him.
That'd be an interesting thing to look at.
I feel like most of those playoffs, at least in recent years, have been Paul catching other players. And with him coming from behind and catching them, it's interesting that if that's true, it could very well just be a case of running out of steam, right? You get to the playoff, but the fact that you forced it, is simply just by, incredible play. And I don't know though.
If you can believe it, I actually have some stats for you.
Do you? Okay.
Shout out to Steve from Statmando.
Steve is great.
Steve's coming through with the crazy data on this one.
Okay, hit me with it.
Of if 2 of his 3 wins, McBeth was behind going into the final round.
Okay.
In his 8 losses, he was leading in 4 and trailing in 4. In his 3 wins, all 3 had a made circle's edge or circle 2 putt to get the W. Obviously, most recently at USDGC to beat Kyle Klein. He is 2-2 in 3+ hole playoffs. He's 1-6 in 1-2 hole playoffs. So there you go.
Okay.
1-2 versus Will Schusterick, 1-2 versus Ricky Wysocki.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think generally playoffs should be considered pretty much a coin flip. It's surprising though, if the coin is going to be, let's call it a coin flip,
sure.
right? In that situation, obviously you'd expect, 5-3, 3-5, but then it's McBeth and you're like, okay, well, you have these memories of him winning crucial playoffs. USDGC, Worlds back in 2014.
Yep.
And then it's like, wow, 3-8. That's surprising. And I don't know what to make of that. I think, part of the issue is that the guy is so good that he ends up in these playoffs all the time and doesn't always go your way. It's not like it's crazy statistical aberration to have it be 3-8 over 11 tournaments. I think if you did it 50 times, maybe it's closer to true 50-50.
I think that's right. I have a hard time deriving a real, I kind of was stretching, but especially now hearing almost exactly half of them were from coming from behind. The other half were going in with the lead. He's 2-1 on those wins coming from behind. It's hard to pull a narrative out of there, given the variety of circumstances that Paul found himself in. It's a case of the guy wins a lot. The guy goes into playoffs a lot. And at a sample size of 11, you really can't draw statistical significance from.
And he has 21 Elite Series and major wins in the last 5 years alone. Okay. It's not like you got to be grasping at straws to start killing Paul for going 3-8 in playoffs. He went on Instagram after the tournament and congratulated Calvin, but he also said that he felt like his shot in the playoff off the tee was affected because the turf on the tee pad buckled under his foot. And there's video, and you can look, you can see it happen. The turf sort of bunches up underneath his foot on his plant foot when he goes to throw the drive. This also happened to a lesser extent on his drive on hole 1 to start the tournament.
Right.
Okay. I have to say, McBeth has had a couple Instagram posts after losses this year where he points to some issue that he had, food poisoning, turf buckles under his foot. I don't really want to hear it. Going to be honest with you. The turf tee pad thing, it's an issue. I think you got to address these tee pads not having great quality footing. I mean, how often do we watch players at Pro Tour events teeing off like on the side of the tee pad off the grass? Like it happens regularly, multiple times a season. That really should not be happening. I don't really know if I have the exact solution here. I know you can't just pour concrete tee pads everywhere, but like we need to figure out what the plan is going to be. And I've seen some people talking about the fact that it's more important to fix that than to worry about standardizing the basket. And I totally agree. Like these awful tee pads cause people to get hurt. Remember, Drew Gibson hurt his knee on a turf tee pad at the Portland Open last year. So anyway, I don't really want to see the excuses getting made on Instagram after a loss. Sorry, just me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you there. I think Paul is a very popular figure who commands probably the single most weight of any one person, organization,
easily,
right, without a doubt. They
changed the Champions Cup format because he wasn't going to show up.
Right.
They can tell you all you want to hear about every other reason that it was because Paul wasn't coming.
Yeah. So Paul commands more attention, social media and otherwise, than anybody else. I could see this as a case where Paul uses it as an opportunity to highlight both, has the excuse, but also to command that attention. Paul can go on Twitter any day and say, hey, we need better tee pads. And yeah, everyone's going to take notice. But when Paul goes, I lost a playoff because of bad tee pads, I think the Pro Tour says, we should probably look at that, guys. Like, and maybe I'm wrong. People who listen to our at the Pro Tour probably are going to say, there's no way, that doesn't make a difference to us. But it doesn't, you can't tell me it doesn't at least put a seed in the public psyche and discussion.
It is clearly bad for the turf to be buckling under people's feet when they're trying to throw off the tee pad. 100%. We got to figure it out. No doubt about it. All right, let's talk about Kevin Jones. He's back. I mean, he's back in a way. We finally see Kevin Jones put together a great tournament. And I think that's kind of the extent of it for me. Like, do I want to kill him for going par to close out the tournament? Not really. I mean, I think he showed you that he's got what it takes to play well, particularly on open courses. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him really get into form here over the next few weeks. I feel like overall, when you look at where is he sitting in the standings right now? He's in 7th in the standings. This is just his second top 10 finish of the season, though. But it feels encouraging because it looked sustainable,
right? Is
what I'll say. It looks sustainable. And, if you go in and you look at the stats, I think you like what you see there because he hits 93% of his Circle 1 putts. He's 21% on Circle 2. He's getting into the circle in regulation. He's scrambling effectively. He only had one bogey the whole weekend. And so, he just happened to get outplayed by Calvin Heimburg and Paul McBeth ever so slightly. And, just a couple, the bad time to have the shots not go your way. But, one bogey all weekend with those kinds of numbers. If you're a Kevin Jones fan, you got to be happy about this because I think you can feel excited that he's going to start showing up over these next few tournaments that are much more in the open and be really competitive.
My question for you, Charlie, is, and we talked a little bit about this in the preview show, I feel like Jonesboro, especially this year, is a good predictor going into DDO this weekend. Do you agree with me?
I mean, I think so. Obviously, we have a kind of a new look course out in Jonesboro or in DDO in Emporia. And we'll obviously talk about that on Thursday. So it's hard to say like exactly, but Jonesboro requires high power shots with technical accuracy. And I think that's what we're going to see at DDO. I mean, I think the most likely outcome for the way that they've changed this Jones course is going to be longer and more technical. Like that's where courses are going,
Yeah, I think if Jones is more technical, as you say, I really feel like you can aggregate Champions Cup and Jonesboro. Because while Jonesboro, I mean, it does have some artificial OB, but I think that DDO takes a lot of the same shot-making abilities, just with using artificial OB rather than as much trees and other terrain. You take the two and kind of aggregate those results, and I think you might have a pretty good predictor for DDO that the players who have played well over the past 2 weeks, I think we could really see play well. I'm interested to see then if Kevin Jones plays well at DDO at the Jones course. That's what I'm interested in seeing, because I don't really doubt that. I think he's going to play well at the country club. That's what my gut is. I need to go back and look and pull up standings or from previous results from Kevin Jones at DDO. But it feels like a course that if Kevin can do well at the Jones course, he could perform well on the country club. Last year, Kevin Jones finishes in 14th place. At the country club, he shot a even final round. And that's really what, I mean, he was well out of
sunk
contention.
Into 14th.
Yeah, but
yep.
Would have been a little bit closer, I think, without that even round.
Eagle McMahon had to withdraw this weekend. Posted on his social media that he felt his shoulder pop out when he was throwing early in the final round. He was not playing well to that point. He walked off the course. He posted then later in his Instagram stories, "Thank you all for your kind words and concerns. I am now traveling home to be proactive and seek professional care. I have a treatment plan lined up that I believe will be beneficial. I have a great team of professionals in my corner in which I can access some of the best care in the world. I am confident that I will be back soon enough. I appreciate you all for caring. This isn't fun or easy, but I will come back better. Peace." Obviously, super disappointing to see Eagle continuing to struggle with the shoulder. And, obviously, of course, you hope that he didn't make anything worse with this shoulder popping out and just simply playing these last couple of weeks when clearly he just was not at 100%. And we talked about this in the live show on Sunday for subscribers. It's in a team sport, maybe the doctor doesn't let you play. In an individual sport, you make the decision to play because you want to go play the major. You want to get back out there. I mean, this is what you love to do. And it's disappointing. It sucks. But I do hope to see Eagle make the decision at this point to say, I can't keep playing until it's right, and do what it takes to get it right, whether that be just straight up rehab or if it has to be getting the surgery before things get worse.
And I wish we could have a little bit more details. That's one thing that I think is kind of nice about the team sports is that they're required to kind of share those things. I don't know if they're necessarily required. Most of them are. I don't know exactly all the contracts of all the leagues. So it's nice to kind of have a clear picture of what we're dealing with. Eagle, after sharing that he may possibly be dealing with a torn labrum, that he was getting an MRI. As far as I know, radio silence. I mean, he went weeks off social media going into Champions Cup and then showed up, much to our surprise, to play. And, now he's saying he's going to be back, but he'll be back soon enough. And he's taking time off and he's re-injured it now. Eagle's obviously not in any way obligated to share exactly what's going on, but it makes it hard to predict and kind of it's a real question mark in my opinion about what Eagles long-term for the season is going to look like. And let's imagine it's not surgery. I can't imagine him back within 2 months. Even
hard to see,
right? Even serious strains are oftentimes 6 weeks, 8 weeks even. And given that he's re-injuring a reoccurring injury since October of last year, I just would be shocked if he is back in form by Europe and playing at 100% by European Open. In my opinion, I think the best outcome for Eagle right now is that he's 100% by Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously going to want to play European Open. But regardless of the goals and hopes for him, he's got to think about the long term here. That's the thing. Like, you don't want to make short-term decisions now that are going to cause you to have long-term problems that prevent you from being the kind of player you can be. Mm-hmm. And like, as we talked about back when we were first discussing the injury, like if he does, in fact, if he would benefit from surgery, yes, he'll miss the rest of the season. That's brutal. But he's young. He's super young. He has another 10, 15 years of highly competitive disc golf in front of him, and he can come back at 100% and be able to throw his forehand at 100% if he gets the surgery.
Yes.
Now, of course, if I was in his shoes, I would want to avoid surgery if at all possible. Mm-hmm. But I also wonder, have those avenues already been exhausted? Because he's already spent 6 months of rehab time after, from last season, and it's not better. So, I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to sit here and try to diagnose something I don't know anything about. But what I will say is that you have to make the long-term right choice here. And I just hope to see him back soon. But you know what? He might not play the rest of the season. And if that's the best thing for him to be able to compete at a high level for the rest of his career, that's what I hope we see.
One little side note, this is tangential, of another shoulder injury. And I know we'll talk more about this on Thursday. Gavin Rathbun is back this weekend. So it's exciting to see him back. Just wanted to mention
took the time, got the surgery, waited even an extra few weeks to come back. He may not be at 100% yet, but at some point you got to start putting the stress back on it. Mm-hmm. And I hope to see him come back strong.
Me too. I think DD made a good signing there. I hope it goes well for him.
All right. Well, we talked about Calvin Heimburg getting the redemption story. How about Kristin Tattar? It's not like she has any dearth of wins in the past, but she's been coming close this season. Mm-hmm. Hasn't missed the podium. and finally gets the win and does it in such a way that you just can't even believe it. I mean, this was one of the most dominant performances we've seen in some time.
Yes.
Biggest win of the season in terms of margin of victory. She beats a Missy Gannon that was playing well by 10 strokes. And she shoots 3 straight hot rounds to do it. She averages 1,008 golf. That's her best ever. In round 1, she shot her best round of her career ever by rating, 1022. And she's now continuing her streak of making every single podium at a DGPT or National Tour event. She's never missed the podium. The only time she's ever missed a podium is in majors.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
She is incredible. And, we talked about this in the recap show, and I really feel like right now, Kristin has to be the number 1 in power rankings. I know that the next ballot, the Ulti World ballot is going to come out after DDO. So we can watch for updated power rankings, and that may make a factor as to who's placed at the number 1 spot. But right now, it's hard to argue with why Kristin wouldn't be number 1. She leads the standings right now on the Disc Golf Pro Tour. She's ahead of Paige by 40 some points. And that's with Paige having 150 points from the Champions Cup.
Right.
It's incredible. So, Kristin's win is worth 50 points less than Paige's win, and yet still is able to just put together and this first place on the Pro Tour standings. What a win, though, this weekend. Missy Gannon shot 981 rated golf and lost by 10 strokes.
It's crazy.
It was unbelievable. I don't even know. I'm almost at a loss for words at how well Kristin played it. And it's funny because in the final round, she shot 997. She left strokes on the course. There were a couple putts that she could have made. She would have been over 1,000 and averaged 3 consecutive 1,000 rated rounds to win the tournament, which would have just been unbelievable.
Dominating. Are you ready for this stat?
Yeah.
In round 1, she made the green in regulation on all 18 holes. I'm pretty sure that hasn't happened all season and basically almost never happens. Like it's a rare feat. She followed it up by doing 17 out of 18 in each of the next 2 rounds. That means there were 2 holes total on the entire 54-hole weekend in which she wasn't putting for birdie. That is crazy. That is how dialed she was. And it was super windy.
Yeah.
It was not easy out there.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what it is about this course. In FPO, we've seen some just blowout victories. Katrina has blown people out. Paige has blown people out.
Yep.
And now Kristin blew everybody out. But man, she said in the interview, I think I have a short memory.
Yeah.
It happened, referring to Champions Cup. There was nothing I could do about it. It was sad for a moment. I cried for a little bit. Then I forgot about it. Yeah, well, this is a nice way to erase the memory.
Look, it's an FPO rite of passage. You have to blow everybody out by, a huge margin at Jonesboro in order to be considered legitimately number 1 in the world. Kristin has now passed her rite of passage. There's nothing left for her. She's got the major. She's got Elite Series wins, and she's blown everyone out at Jonesboro. She's got it. That's the complete resume.
And look, it's not like we didn't already know that Kristin Tattar was having a great season.
Right.
There was a case to be made that even though she hadn't won an event, that she was having the best season. There was at least a case. Now I think it's solidified. Has not missed a podium.
Yep. Only player not.
Second at Waco, second at Texas States, second at Champions Cup, first at Jonesboro. And the case for Paige is that she has 2 wins. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. But, clearly you talked about not feeling fully focused on Jonesboro this week because of, major last week. Well, you weren't the only one. Yeah. I think some pros were like, Paul said he was almost going to drop out. Her Paige was almost going to drop out. For different reasons, but it's tough. It's tough.
That would be tough. I will say though, that something that was interesting here is that we had a pretty, I don't know if I quite want to use the word surprising, but it was a different leaderboard than we've seen this season. Missy Gannon taking second place. She has had a couple of good finishes this season.
She's starting to heat up a little bit.
Her win at Music City Open, obviously, but relative, she's kind of suffering from the predictions that we made preseason that Missy Gannon was going to continue to play safe, good golf, but the problem was that the field is better than it's ever been, and that's not going to be good enough for regular fifth place or better finishes, and that's proven to be true. Missy Gannon has a 7th at LVC, a 12th at Waco, a 5th at Texas States, and then an 8th at Champions Cup, followed by the 2nd at Jonesboro. Not a bad resume by any means. It's a very respectable season, but because of the field, that's why I think we're seeing Missy Gannon not quite as consistently good relative to the field as we've seen in the past. So seeing her second place at Jonesboro, especially a course that does have some favor in distance, I think was really, really good to see for Missy Gannon going into a stretch that I really don't think favors her game.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, she shot 22 points above her rating. On another weekend, it might have been good enough to win.
Yeah.
But Kristin Tattar was just too dialed in this weekend. But, as you said, Josh, some different names up at the top, not just Missy Gannon, but how about Kat Mertsch?
Yep.
Finishes in a tie for third with Ella Hansen. Okay, so there you go. There's your third place finishers, Kat Mertsch and Ella Hansen. Kat Mertsch landing on the podium for the first time at an Elite Series. And it feels appropriate. She's really been playing well. She has been one of the most consistent players to start the season. She's currently sitting in 6th place in the Pro Tour standings and has looked just extremely sharp. I feel like I'm fully convinced that Kat Mertsch is like going to be a top 10 regular finisher on the Disc Golf Pro Tour moving forward. She's showing skill off the tee. She's a little weak in the putting department, but I think it's something that she can work on, and just clearly improving all around in every category. We've talked about it before. So congrats to her for finishing on her first podium. Ella Hansen gets her 3rd podium. It's amazing that, Ella Hansen's been playing 2 years.
Yeah.
Like a year and a half.
Turned pro in 2020.
Yeah. And already has 3 podium finishes, including at a major at the U.S. Women's Championship last year. Showed you why she could be something special. Just bombing drives in a way that, at some point, Terry Miller was like, Ella Hansen's waiting on the tee pad because she's worried she might hit the people like way down the fairway with her drive, and proceeded to then throw it like 425.
Going back to Kat Mertsch, if you had to pick a stat that you think is most important in predicting overall season competitiveness and results.
Circle one in regulation.
There it is. Yep, that's it. That's always going to be the answer. And I think you and I both have always agreed on this. Circle one in regulation is the most important predictor for how someone is playing. Kat Mertsch is 4th. 4th place in Circle one in regulation at 39%.
And what was she at last year?
I will pull that up.
39%. That's a great number.
Last year, Kat Mertsch was at 20%.
Almost double.
And what's so impressive to me is that we haven't fully run the gambit, but with the Champions Cup there in that mix, granted, that was her worst finish on the Elite Series, which was 14th. That being said, though, we've had a fair variety of courses, and Kat Mertsch is still playing well. I'm interested to see what happens when she gets in some really, really technical woods for a longer stretch. Champions Cup, obviously not her best. I have a hard time drawing too much from just one tournament, given her overall season performance. But that Kat Mertsch has the number right now that we look to back up a 6th place standing on the Pro Tour right now. And
100%.
I think Ella Hansen at 10th place, not playing too shabby either.
Yeah. Ella's about to be in, you talked about Missy being in a stretch that doesn't favor her game. Ella's about to be in a stretch that very much favors her game. I'll be excited to see if she can put herself into true contention for a win. I think it's possible. And on a course like OTB, maybe Portland, we've seen her play really well there before. A lot of courses coming up that are going to be big bomber.
And what's really, I think, exciting about Ella Hansen from this weekend, excellent Circle 2 putting. just phenomenal circle two putting.
Yeah.
She gained
Led the tournament.
5 strokes. Yeah, like you said, led the tournament, gained 5 strokes, 38% circle two putting. Circle one needs some work, but I mean, that has to be just for Ella Hansen so exciting to see those parts of her game developing. Could you imagine if Ella Hansen, cleans up those upshots a bit and becomes a consistent 70% putter?
Be incredible. And she it's like Evelina getting it going.
Yeah.
I mean, Evelina's a better all-around player right now, but Ella is not terribly far off if she can start to get it going with the upshots.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at our picks from the weekend. Josh correctly picks Calvin Heimburg. What a get, Josh. I got to give you some credit.
Thank you.
I correctly picked Kristin Tattar to win in FPO. And I tell you what, I just knew she was going to win coming off the way that things went down at Champions Cup. And then Josh got an extra 2 points, had McBeth and Tattar on his podium. I had Heimburg and McBeth on my podium, but I missed with Ricky in first place. Josh wins the over-under because Paige Pierce and Chris Dickerson did not average under 3.5 total placement this weekend. It was a good number at the end of the day, but I think I really should have accounted for the major hangover effect a little more than I did.
Yeah. What, 7th and 4th? So it really was close. Maybe 4.5 would have been the better number, but I gotta say, Charlie, if you look over, we now can go to our totals. Post Jonesboro, you lead in the picks at 33 points. I am at 27. In the over-unders, I've got you 9-5. And I got to be honest, I would way rather be leading in the over-unders. One good week, and I catch you in the points. This is going to take a month of sustained over-under picks.
You're not going to catch me in the points.
Oh, I'm going to catch you. I'm not worried about that. It's going to take you... If there was a tournament every weekend right now, it would take you a month to catch me in over-under.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's do some bonus over-under so I can catch up. Hey! Let's take a look at our purse watch. Purse watch. Total purse this weekend, $72,175. $50,000 going to MPO, $22,175 going to FPO. The MPO winner got $8,500, so Calvin takes home a nice check. And Kristin Tattar takes home $4,500 for winning an FPO. That is an 18.7% increase on last year's purse, which was just over $60,000, and falls right in line with pretty much all of the Elite Series DGPT events so far this season. Just for context, LVC was $71K, Waco was $68K, Texas States was $72K, Jonesboro $72K, and of course Champions Cup, the big payout so far this season, $130,000.
Even though Jonesboro did not quite have the same as high of a total purse as Texas State's, off by a couple $100, Jonesboro did give out the highest single payouts to the winners, except, excluding Champions Cup, of course, at $8,500, beating out Texas State's at $4,500, beating Texas State out for both MPO and FPO by $500. So,
yeah, interesting to see that.
Yeah,
we're starting to see the money pool more at the top. And there's arguments to be made both ways about whether that's a good thing or you should spread the payouts down further down the leaderboard. But, I think I saw a stat. I'm actually going to pull this up right now.
While you're doing that.
Over on Reddit,
okay, you got it.
Ricky, McBeth, Dickerson, and Heimburg have all made over $20,000 in tournament winnings so far this year.
Wow.
And if you go after those top 4 guys, most other players are not even in the ballpark, right? They're down at 10K or less. Mm-hmm. So it really helps to be up in that top 3 range on a regular basis.
And, as you mentioned, I think something that's interesting is that as added cash and sponsorships become the primary way that we're going to fund payouts, I think we're going to have to take a hard evaluation about how we do payouts, because, the 40% model that's based on entry fees and the money that comes in from entry fees in keeping fields deep at tournaments. It's why you can see sometimes sub 900 rated players getting into Pro Tour events, because they are able, because they pad the purse. But as outside sponsorships continue to increase, I imagine that our method for determining payouts is probably there's going to be exceptions in the way that the Pro Tour is able to do so for Elite Series. I'm interested to see, as you said, which way that breaks. How much is it going to break towards the top, and is it going to continue to trickle down in the way that it currently does?
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the parity we've seen so far this season. And we are also going to talk about this Eagles Crossing Skins match coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And you know what? If you want to get the custom pack that you envision in your mind's eye, the pack of your dreams, you can do it at any time. Go to pounddiscgolf.com and you can get your custom Octothorpe, your custom Octahall, your custom Carlton, your custom Toolbox, and their custom pack builders are now open all the time. No more waiting for drops or hoping that you get lucky. You can just go build your pack. You can tinker with it for a while before you hit the order button, but you can check it all out on their website and you can just design it exactly how you want, from the zippers to the main flap to the bottom of the pack, exactly what you envision. pounddiscgolf.com. Welcome back to The Upshot. As I'm sure you can tell if you're watching on YouTube, or maybe you notice my mic doesn't sound quite the same. I am out on the road. I am in Las Vegas again because I am a total degenerate, Josh. No, but actually I'm here for the NAB show, National Association of Broadcasters. This is the biggest television, streaming, film, broadcasting conference in the world. And it hasn't happened. I mean, it's happened virtually or whatever,
Sure.
But it hasn't happened since 2019. So back out here, it's an inspiring place to go because it's like, wow, what could you do with more money? And, think about like the Disc Golf Network and everything that they're doing and what they've been able to accomplish with the resources that they have and what's realistic and what's not. I think it's interesting. People complain a lot about, oh, the camera quality isn't good enough, da-da-da. It's like, to some extent, when you're relying on cellular uplink, there's only so much you can do. And it's tough. Like, yes, they could get better cameras, but to get cameras that are going to make an appreciable difference in your viewing experience, they're going to have to spend $10,000 to $15,000 a camera. Maybe they have the money to do that. I mean, they have a lot of subscribers. They've been investing in the broadcast. Maybe that's something that they should be thinking about. But it just like, it's hard to put into perspective for people. Like when you watch a game on ESPN, what you are seeing from the cameras and the graphics and everything that's involved in the production, it is millions of dollars just in the gear. And that doesn't even count the probably $500 to $1,000 to $1 million that they spend on the personnel to actually operate the broadcast itself. It's just, there's a scale here that's hard to comprehend, but like there are products that are used by ESPN, say, that would cost more than all of the streaming gear that I own, and I own a lot. Okay. And but it's fun to see it all and be like, wow, imagine if we could do that.
I had never been to a professional NBA game before last Saturday when I went to the Jazz Mavericks game.
A great game to go to.
A great game to go to. But I was just shocked at, I think in the NBA arena, especially just how compact the court is. All the equipment's just on a much closer scale. And so to see it all right there on display, and then, the replay angles, obviously, you watch one dunk and you get 4 or 5, 6 angles on it, and you just have those massive cameras that are displaying it. It really was something to behold, and a very, very neat experience. And I'm not nearly as much in the industry as you are.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to like think about the ways that you can do a lot with a little. And that's kind of where disc golf still is. Sorry to break it to everybody. Like, we're not the NBA yet. And
really?
Yeah, really. And it's a matter of thinking about, okay, like what are the things we can bring to a broadcast that improve it without needing to spend $50,000 on one piece of equipment, which is very easy to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I promised we would talk about some parity, and that's what we're going to talk about. Did you know, Josh, in MPO, there are no repeat Elite Series winners this season. In FPO, there is only one. Paige Pierce won Texas States and won Champions Cup. And we're through 5 Elite Series events so far this season. It's kind of surprising when you actually hear the numbers out loud, but think about it. LVC, Drew Gibson, Waco, McBeth, Texas States, Ricky, Champions Cup, Chris Dickerson. And then this weekend, of course, at Jonesboro, Calvin Heimburg. So it's pretty amazing to see, even though, yes, like all those guys that have won an MPO have all been really good and have clearly separated themselves from everybody else. The fact is that none of them have won twice. You know, you can give Chris Dickerson a little bonus, I guess, for the Silver Series, but, you know, even McBeth, who just looked unstoppable to start the season, only has the one Elite Series win.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, because I just went back and pulled up last year through OTB Open, because we had a lot of Silver Series at the beginning of the year. You had Open at Belton, Vintage Open, Mid-America, and Goat Hill.
Right.
And then no major, obviously. So, you know, lots of Silver Series kind of breaking that up. Eagle McMahon had 2 wins through OTB, and Paige Pierce had 2 wins through OTB. Everyone else were unique winners. But I think the point that you bring up, and what's really crucial, is that McBeth has rounds and has tournaments so far that we've seen him that we say, wow, no one is going to touch McBeth. I've seen rounds from Katrina that we say she's the best player in the field right now. We've seen Kristin and we say, well, the win is just inevitable. And that's the really important part of parity. Parity is a combination, in my opinion, of a couple of things. One is the actual wins that you're getting, right? And the number of people who are winning. The fact that we do have the range of players who have won is something that I think does lead itself to parity. But it's also who's winning. At Waco last year, you had Nico and Kona. Even with their wins, I don't think we were ready to say, oh, Nico and Kona are at the top and just in the same elite tier. But so far, the winners of all the tournaments, we do think are in elite tiers. It's Calvin, Paul, Ricky, Chris, Paige, Kristin, Katrina, and Valerie. I think Valerie was the only one who I think had to prove herself and has done so exceptionally well this season. And so the first part of parity is the wins, and not just, you know, how many wins, but who is winning. And that's something that's really important. The second part, though, is it's about storylines and the perceived performance of people at the events that they don't win. It's not that McBeth is just not, you know, he's injured, he's not playing as well. It's not that Calvin or Ricky aren't playing great. It's not that that Chris is suffering from his new bag. All 4 of those guys are playing at elite levels, and all 4 of them have a win to show for it. And that's what I think really makes parity, is that we have the statistics, the hard truth of who's won, and then we also have what is very much the perception of parity when you watch these players out on the course, and it makes for the most exciting golf. And it's funny because it's true on both MPO and FPO, and FPO has more depth in the parity than I think we've ever seen before. And it makes for truly compelling and entertaining disc golf to watch.
And I can't believe this, but we literally got an email while we're here recording that touches exactly on this topic. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This is from Aaron.
Okay.
He says, I got to say, having one combined pro tour right when players are hitting huge manufacturer paydays and traveling full time is paying incredible dividends for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. These close finishes every week with full fields have been fantastic. So Aaron did the math. He went back and he asked the question, are we really getting better Sundays than before?
Great.
And he says,
Good
for
question.
sure. And not only that, it's coming during a stretch that's typically had wider margins of victory. So he did the numbers. So he ran the margin between the winner and then second place, third place, fifth place, 10th place, and 25th place. And the trend is unquestionable. If you go back over the last 4 years and all the way back to 2012, the trend has all been towards closer margins. Okay, so I believe this is just looking at MPO. But so far this year, the margin between winner and second place on average has been 1.2 strokes. And last year it was 2.26. 2020 it was 2.6. 2019 it was 2.9. 2012 it was 3.3. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's a small sample, but it matches what we've been seeing. And this is true for all of these, third place, 10th place, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It matches what we're seeing. We are getting into final rounds, and it is tight. Now, obviously, Kristin Tattar blew everybody away this weekend, but that's been the irregular result. There have been past seasons where Paige Pierce and Katrina Allen regularly win tournaments by 7+ strokes, and it's not interesting in the final round. That has not been the case very often this season. We have been going into the back nine on Sunday with a tournament, and it has been close. Exclusive of some Silver Series, I guess. But who cares?
Right.
The fact is, we have had some awesome disc golf so far this year. Playoff finishes, drama on the 18th hole of the final round. I mean, what more do you want?
And that's you hit the nail on the head when you said if it weren't for Jonesboro, I would have argued that FPO has been the more compelling disc golf overall versus MPO, and so I'd be interested to see the stats on that because these numbers are already pretty incredible for MPO. I can't imagine what they must be for FPO. Then it has been an amazing season, and I really appreciate the split broadcasts. I think it was a good time to do the split broadcasts. Could you imagine if you were trying to do the overlapping broadcasts with some of the Sundays that we've had?
Wow, it would have been brutal.
It would have. It would have been so disappointing. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour must just be thrilled at the product that the players are delivering for them. And I'd be interested to do a check-in and see kind of where their subscriber numbers are and if they've seen an uptick thanks to the exceptional golf at the beginning of the season.
Okay, it's coming up this week. The Eagles Crossing grand opening big money skins match. It's happening today, Tuesday. We're recording this show on Monday. And originally Eagle was supposed to be here, but he's been replaced by Simon Lizotte. It's going to be Simon, Calvin, Brody, and Scott Stokely. Okay, big money skins match, at least $11,800 in the prize pool, but they say they anticipate additional money will be added. Spectator passes are $200, and they sold out 130 tickets. $200.
I'm a little bit concerned, Charlie, that Calvin is going to get charged with robbery. He takes everyone's prize money this weekend.
Over under bonus.
Okay. Yeah, you're just making up. You're making up over unders now. You're just trying to catch me.
Correct. And so again, this is coming out Tuesday. We're recording Monday night. Over under 1.5 skins taken by somebody other than Calvin.
1.5 skins? Oh, I gotta take the over on that. Don't get me wrong. Simon is not what he used to be, but in a skins match, you got to think Simon's at least going to take 2.
Okay.
I'll take the over. Okay. Man, Charlie, I'm going to feel bad. I'm putting you in a further hole. I just took your money. I just took your over under like Calvin takes their money.
I guess I'm more interested in maybe I should have made it, but it's too late. I've already said it. But will Brody or Scott get any skins?
See, that's an interesting one. I say no. I really, I do not see them taking.
This is not an official skin, money. So over under 0.5. You taking the under?
I'll take.
Okay, unofficial.
Let's for the fun of it, let's look at what Brody and Scott Stokely have done for us.
Let's do it because this was a big discussion point before the season. How are these guys doing right now in the Pro Tour?
Well. Over Mr. Stokely, he finds himself, I remember Scott said that he only plays in tournaments that he thinks that he can win. He finds himself at 116th in the Pro Tour standings, finishing at 112th at Jonesboro. His best finish thus far at a major or at an elite series is Waco at 66th.
Yeah. Yikes. I mean, Brody's blowing him out right now.
Yeah,
Let's just be
it's not
honest.
even close.
Okay, so here it is. All right,
Okay.
5 players DNF'd at Jonesboro.
Okay.
2 players, Nico Ratia and Brent Hanu, finished a tie for 113th. Scott Stokely finished in 112th.
What are their ratings? Let's see,
990 and 991.
Oh.
Stokely currently rated 999. He was 1 stroke off of finishing dead last if you don't count the DNFs. Look, I like Scott.
I do
but
too.
Let's be honest. If he really truly believed what he said when he says that he doesn't enter an event if he doesn't think he can win, he wouldn't be playing. Because I just don't think it's realistic right now that he can win any of these tournaments.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's not a surprise. He's in his 50s. I mean, I think it's fun. I think it's cool. I think people are excited to see him play in this skins match and like go on the road and do all this stuff and like do his clinics. And I think, I think a lot of people are learning a lot from his teaching. But let's be honest, he's not competitive.
Yeah. You ready for some more fun stats? So Brody currently ranked 52nd in the Pro Tour standings. Brody has played every event except the Open at Tallahassee. So that comes out to, you have LVC in Waco, Texas States, and Jonesboro. So 4 Elite Series, a Major, and 2 Silver Series. So 7 events. Simon Lizotte has played 3 events, Waco, Jonesboro, and Champions Cup, and is ranked 42nd in the Disc Golf Pro Tour, 10 spots ahead of Brody. So his efficiency, you could call it, is literally double that, is more than double that of Brody's in terms of his placement. Brody's best finish thus far on an Elite Series event did come at Jonesboro at 25th. Simon's 6th at Jonesboro, thanks to a miraculous second round. Really excellent play from him there. But, Simon took home 22 points from Champions Cup. Brody, 51st, took 1.5 points. And if it was an regular Elite Series, it would have been 1 point.
I mean, Brody has showed that he can go out there and shoot a really good round.
Yeah.
He shot 7 under in the first round of Jonesboro, finished for 25th. I think that's about where he's at. I think a top 25 performance is a good performance for him. And a top 10 would be like a season defining performance for him. I don't think we've seen enough from him on the consistency front to really believe that he can go out and compete for an actual win on tour. And he still just takes like too many double bogeys. It's like, and it feels a lot like he's a player who's learned to play recently, who has some really good natural gifts for the game, and still just makes some MA1 type mistakes sometimes.
Yep.
And the thing is, he's such an incredible thrower of the disc that he can overcome a lot of those errors. But at the end of the day, he's not at the level of the top players. And it's still, he's still a top 50 disc golfer in the world, which is pretty impressive considering how long he's been playing.
Yeah. I would really love what was the ratings cutoff for a tour card? Do you remember?
20, I think.
That's what I think too. The reason why I was quick, this is related, I promise. I was talking to somebody about, kind of where the ratings caps are at different divisions and how it breaks down. And I didn't really have a clean, articulate way to define a touring pro versus a regional pro, because you have regional pros, but who kind of tour. And so it's kind of an awkward, I really think there should just be a rating. If you're 10, 20 and above, for example, you're considered a touring pro. I think that's a clean way to do it. Let's see, Brody finished 25th. So let's pull up Brody. Brody's 10, 20. So he is what we would consider the very bottom of our touring pro pool. That feels right. Feels right.
It does.
He could show up to an A tier and probably beat anybody who shows up to that A tier. But he goes on tour and then he is at the bottom of that touring pro pool. Obviously going to beat your regional pros who come. But definitely is, I think at the bottom of what that touring pro pool is going to be. Something that I would real quick is a little side note on Jonesboro real quick. Nate Sexton played this weekend and finished in 43rd. So
did he cash?
He did cash.
Oh my God. by the skin of his teeth
By the
again.
skin of his teeth. 46th, tied for 46th was last cash, and Nate finished at 43rd. Look, it's not a major. He's only there to keep his cash streak alive. That's all he cares about.
And now it's just like someone's got to put a camera on him just for the drama of whether he's getting the cash or not. Well, I'm glad he kept it going. That's awesome.
For sure.
So anyway, Eagles Crossing skins match. It's going to be, I think, what's on GK Pro, right?
Yes.
And so you can check that out when it comes out, and we'll see if Brody or Scott can get a skin. Should be fun to watch. And hey, if Simon's dialed in, maybe he's going to win more skins than Calvin. I set the number at the wrong number. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you on Thursday, and our interview series continues tomorrow on Wednesday, as always. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on The Upshot.